Hello and welcome to another episode of Speculative Speculations. I'm Varsha.
I'm Steve.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Dan.
And I'm Jared, salesman of baby HP products extraordinary.
The best they have. And this is a series where we talk about speculative stories in all their forms. Today we're going to be discussing through the end of Fast 3 of Children of Ruin, which is the second book of the Children of Time series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. We are working our way through this book, approximately 100 to 150 pages each week. Basically, whatever breakdown gets us there in 4 discussions for this book. For next week, we're going to be reading to the end of Fast 4, which is up to about 414 pages in, I think, pretty much all the edition of the book that I'm aware of. We also, for each episode, work our way through the short stories in the big book of science fiction. Today's short story is Baby HP by Juan Jose Arreola. The next short story is about 40 pages long in a pretty big-sized book with small font. So we're going to not discuss it next week. We're going to give ourselves 2 weeks to talk about it. So Surface Tension by James Blish. 2 weeks from now is the short story for the second episode from this one. So with that, let's get on to discussing Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I know we had some mixed opinions on the opening last week. Mm-hmm. How did everyone feel about this turning into a horror novel? Meanwhile,
you already know what I think.
Go for it, Steve.
Oh, no, well, before we get into that, I want to say kudos to Varsha because she nails the names every single week.
Yes.
Ooh,
all the different names. So I'm impressed. Yeah. Sometimes it's like by blah, 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 blah. You know, we kind of like pretend nobody's paying attention. But anyway,
that's still
I really enjoyed the. Yeah, I'm a pro. I was one of the people who had mixed feelings about the first couple chapters, and even throughout most of these pages that we read, it kind of felt a little too familiar. Like, okay, we've seen this. It's kind of the same ideas, just in a fun house mirror. And towards the end, when everything goes to shit, I loved it. It was so much fun. But he is really good at writing tension and really he gives you just enough to fill in the blanks. He doesn't go too far to explain everything. He kind of leaves a lot of things out and makes you kind of fill in what happened. And it's very anti-Stephen King, so I'm on board.
He's a big Stephen King fan.
Yes, he's not enough at all. I was thinking about the first 30 pages of this section we had to read. I was so bored. I was honestly to the point of every 2 pages was like reading 20 of something else. I was like, there's nothing happening here. There's nothing interesting. And what I really love, having got to the end of this section, is a lot of the things that he put in there that he made us assume were one thing were completely something else. So the little periods where we're talking about the we, all of that kind of stuff. I assume I'm not the only one that thought that was the octopods or the cephalopods, kind of that was their language talking, and that was them kind of in the future kind of thinking about it, and then do the rug pull, do the parasitic kind of new life form, and all of a sudden you're like, I need to go back and read all of those things because there's this whole new lens being shown on the whole story, and it's exactly what the story needed because now it's completely fascinating.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned last week about the we sections being the aliens on the planet, and I was sort of taken aback because I originally thought it was the octopi as well, and then but then when somebody mentioned it last week, I forget who it was, but then I was like, oh wait a minute, that puts a little different light on it, but then yeah, but I was enjoying the book anyways. I didn't have the board problem that you guys had, but to me it just felt familiar and comfortable as I was reading it, and then of course it does go into some exciting horror story elements here, like kind of like Aliens type horror, you know, the movies, and Steve, you're right. He definitely knows how to keep that tension alive, and when he's writing, he definitely, like you said, knows how to give just enough information to keep you on the edge of your seat and keep that tension going, and not bog it down at all with anything that you don't need, and you get it all. You get everything you do need when you're reading this, so that was very exciting end of the chapter there.
Yeah, I have to be honest. He was kind of losing me with the present part with the spiders. At some point, some of the pages, my eyes was a bit glazing over because I don't know. I wasn't too into those parts. I just wanted to go back to the past, wherever was all the the aliens and the exploration of stuff like that. And when like the interesting part started coming when they met the octopus, like that part was interesting. That part, and then the other part, like you said, with the body possession and stuff like that. That luckily, I was like, okay, yeah, we're back into it now. I just wonder if the previous part could have been a bit shorter.
I think I agree the past was a lot more interesting for me than the present, but I can't say that I was bored by the present bits, mainly because I spent most of it trying to figure out what species, or what's the plural of species, survived from the past that we've been monitoring. Like, why did the octopus think of, when they see Holston's her last name, right? Or is it Mason? I think it's Holston. But
Helena,
how she it reminds him of the octopus. It reminds him of some ancestral figure that maybe they're afraid of, which, coming from the possibility of, well, okay, I guess that set up the possibility of possession later on. And because we know that the alien consciousness from the snippets before are a multitude consciousness, and that, like, they are dispersed across. I think when I read those sections last week, I thought they were maybe the tortoise, and maybe even the flying creatures. But then there was the fact that they were looking at the human sense and stuff at a molecular level, so it also left the possibility of a microscopic alien, which, anyway, given all of that, I think there was some possibility of possession there. And if it was in fact humans that terrified the octopus, and it wasn't Senkovi that the octopus was thinking of, then it could have been humans that were infected by whatever, like they've now become part of the multitude, and that would make for a very interesting past, like what happened in the past. So anyway, like basically what I'm doing throughout the present is trying to figure out what the heck happened in the past to get us here. So that made the present fairly interesting for me to read. And I loved the descriptions of the octopus dance and how they do poetry. and then the slow freezing of that electromagnetic ball. I think that was brilliant. Like, going back to the not giving us too much detail, I think that was done really well. But in the past, what you guys said about not giving us a lot of detail, I loved that the perspective we got of that horror scene where Lortiz dies was from Lortiz's perspective, and you can imagine how he's thrashing around, and like if he had it from Lante, is that her name? Her perspective, I think it would have been terrifying. But being inside Lortiz's head throughout all of that, I think makes it particularly chilling, because they are just on the edge of benign. They're just like, they're cute. They just want to go exploring, and we are going, and like, to make a phrase like "we are going on an adventure" be chilling, I think that's just brilliant. But
I
yeah,
mean, maybe they are good. I guess we don't know. Maybe it was a mistake what they did. Like they weren't aware of how the human body works. Like we don't know what their objective is technically.
Yes, we
oh,
do.
they
Do we?
they just want to go exploring and they
Well,
do. Yeah.
But why?
But they want to spread. They want to take on more hosts. I
Mhm.
mean, the biting of Atlantes
Yeah.
or whatever it was called kind of says that in some ways. And then of a Baltail as well. Then they want to,
Mhm.
just like every other species, propagate and expand and do. But clearly, they have as part of the taking on the host thing, they gain their knowledge and they are bowled over by this idea of space exploration and this idea of
Mhm.
how vast the world is and actually how much they can propagate and move in the space of that. I think
Or maybe a
that's
collective sort of species would be better than a individualistic one. Possibly.
I'll sign you up first for it, Dan. It's good.
It did seem strange to me that the doctor was like, well, it's foreign, so we're fine. Like, it's not from our
Yeah,
environment, so no big deal. Like, take an Advil and you'll be cool. Like, don't worry about it. It's like, no, it seems like it reminded me a lot of the first Alien film, that
Yeah.
the whole quarantine thing. I won't get too
Yeah.
into it for spoilers, but for a 40-year-old movie, but yeah, it seemed a little goofy, but
I mean, it is
But-
true what he was saying, right? Like, parasitic beings are extremely like speciated. Like, they're very parasitic of certain species, and they're not like they can be anything. So what he was saying would be true, and probably if he was gonna die, it would be something like toxins or just general organ failure and stuff like that. So that part for me was, yeah. The other part was like, I don't know if he's gonna be safe, anyways, but I think it made sense in my opinion.
and I think to us it did feel like it was coming out of nowhere, but it was after they'd done a lot of analysis of all the different samples that they had taken on the planet. So like the dialogue is weird because it sounds like she's just saying that from thinking that or hoping that that's true, but I think it follows also from all the research they've done so far.
Well, it's kind of, what's the option then? Keeping him in quarantine the whole time, and how long? And how long do you study him? I think that sense of denial that people have will lead them to probably make some of the decisions they made. You don't want to think that you have to do that to one of the last people ever alive.
And I think that plays into it, Jared. There's so few of them. They sort of felt, I think, that they could just leave him to work away and be by himself and just observe him at a distance if needed be. But it was a bit more nefarious than that. For me, the really interesting part of it, in retrospect, is that exploration of the present with Avrana Kern basically taking over the other humans' consciousness, etc. I was like, what is the point of this? It felt so convoluted. It felt so like unnecessary. It was like, what is going on? And then to have it pay off further down the line, especially when you had Paul, the thing that triggered the alarm obviously is the duality of the personality of, God, what did you call the guy? Hershon or whatever, Mercer. Him. They obviously detected the duality of his personality, and that's what set off the alarm bells for the octopi at that stage of the cephalopods. So, but again, we didn't know that at the time. We just kind of were going on this. Well, what actually did go on? Because they see the world in colors. Yeah, this seeing the world in colors and being able to detect slight changes in mood and that kind of stuff. You're like, well, what actually did they see? Or what happened there? And I think that it sort of reminded me a lot of Embassy Town. I have to say, like I was sort of reminded of that kind of dual personality that comes from Embassy Town and the two people there, and I was like, it's amazing how all these books sort of bleed into one in terms of ideas or in terms of thought processes, etc. So yeah. Loved it.
Yeah.
Huh.
That bit about Khan identifying with an entity like herself, that was pretty interesting too. Like it felt like at this point she had basically no humanity left, in the sense of like craving any human connection or emotion, but then finding solidarity in another being like herself. I think that was also pretty well done, I thought. Which makes me wonder how we ended up in that situation. Is it just Senkovi transmitting Lante's research into space, because we know that she's dead?
She's not dead.
Or no? I
None
think
of them are dead. Baltail's not dead.
yeah. It's
Like, literally none of them are dead. Like, even Rani, when she got her throat opened and all that kind of stuff, is still alive. Lantis is obviously still alive on the planet. In my view, like, I think there's no doubt about that.
they're in the consciousness of the collective thing, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I was kind of headed there, that they might be in those creatures still.
Yeah. They're
And
zombies, essentially. You know,
yeah.
I mean, but without any kind of other word for it at the moment, kind of seeing them as kind of automatons of a consciousness, you know.
Yeah. And they had this whole thing about, we're going to keep this alive forever, which I suppose they kind of can, with what they did with the guy when he, oh man, that was another really creepy scene. You don't expect that, and then like he gave her the injection with just the hand. What do you guys think of that?
Oh. It's a proper horror novel. Like, it really turned into some of the heaviest horror stuff that I've read, because it is that loss of self. It is blood and guts. It is that kind of idea that there is something trying to take over your individuality and use your body, and you're there but you're not there. Like, that whole stuff is at the very core of some of the scariest stuff that's in movies and TV and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you
And I
think
love
their personality is still there? Or, because like, I think there was some discussions like, oh, we kind of don't understand what personality really is, right? So do you think it's still there, or it's kind of like the host is taking their brain and just reading it like a book? Sort of. I don't know.
That's a good question, because I think Tchaikovsky's playing with that aspect of individuality versus a kind of group meld or group think sort of thing, because he's doing it with the octopus. They seem to already have this kind of group thinking going on with the octopuses, and they do it of course in a much different way than the aliens do. But I think that's interesting, because there's a couple of places where you had the octopus perspective, and it's like he has an ego, but and he recognizes as a separation from the rest of the universe, but it's not. It's something that he's working through. He's not used to having an eye, and that was Paul the octopus. And I was wondering why on the first section in chapter 4, Tchaikovsky kind of went into an omniscient narrator again, and he was kind of like, let's call this one Paul, and it's like, I'm like, well, wait a minute, is that us? We're calling this octopus Paul, and so it went into this omniscient narration at that point, and he's talking about Paul and Portia and how alike they are and how disalike they are, and that's just a direct author comparison to the two species, rather than having a point of view within the context of the story. And I thought that was kind of interesting how he did that, but I think he was trying to point out those differences between I and a group, they or us or we. And of course that comes into big play later on when the aliens are taking over the I of the humans and making it into a we us situation. And that was just brilliantly done, which added to the horror of what you said, losing your individuality. So that's pretty cool.
And I think to add to that, like I think the individuality of an octopus is different because I think it's mentioned in some parts like they don't have full control of all the appendages because their brain I think is decentralized, right?
Mhm.
Like their tentacles kind of have a bit of a mind of their own, right? I don't remember
Right.
exactly how it works their biology, but I think like their brain they have either multiple brains or they're kind of not exactly the same as ours. So that's also like a different take on individuality.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Did what was I gonna ask? Yeah, the tortoises that were dead. Do you think that so a theory that I have, I don't know if it really matters, is that these so I have two questions. The creatures, the microscopic things that took over Lortis, were they already infecting the other creatures of this planet, or were they just existing and they took over the humans, and they tried to take over the tortoises? Or is it that they took over the tortoises, but then they had a modified version of themselves that was feeding on the molecules that the humans were leaving behind, and that infected the tortoises that they found dead, and they were already slightly modified for humans, and then they continued modifying themselves until they took over the corpus callosum. Oh my god, that was terrifying when she came and said, oh, the thing that connects the two sides of the brain, that's gone and it's replaced by this alien entity now.
Yeah, it kind of made me think a bit like I don't know if you know that bug that eats the tongue of fish and then replaces the tongue, and it acts like a tongue, but it also takes some of their food. It's like a parasite. Kind of makes me feel a bit like that.
Thanks for that, Dan.
You can look it up. You'll find some
I'm
pictures
sure.
which are very
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, at least if that happened to me, I'd lose some weight, maybe. So.
I mean, isn't that a thing? Like people eating a tapeworm so to actually
That's
lose
right.
weight?
Right. Yeah.
Oh yikes! What is it? People do that on purpose?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Thanks,
Anyway,
Dan.
but back to your question. I think it's sort of intimated that the parasites have been existing on that planet, whether they were started in the tortoise or otherwise. I think it's sort of propagated across that planet because it doesn't seem that it has knowledge of things outside the planet at that stage. So when it's seen another organism, i.e. the humans arriving, it just was trying to propagate around that. And because it was probably used to the biology and the biochemistry of that planet, it could do it easily, but it had to adapt. And you've seen the difference between adapting to the first thing, which was Lortis, and it's struggling to fight through, because basically, if it wasn't for the intervention, it would have been dead. The human body would have burned it up, would have burned the body up from the inside. But once it made that adaptation and seen how it goes, it was able to make the transfer across to the rest of the crew very, very quickly. That one bite, etc., was able to do it, almost instantly at that stage, which is where some of the real terror and horror came from. The kind of, there wasn't a gestation period, there wasn't that kind of alien thing of
Yeah.
the thing bursting from a chest or anything at that stage. There was none of that going to happen. It was just nearly instant.
Yeah. That was terrifying how quickly that took over. That makes me wonder. So we know these aliens apparently the V consciousness creatures can apparently keep their host alive, sort of. So is it that they found these tortoises that have just been alive since the beginning of time, and from when the aliens first tried to adapt themselves to the tortoises, and then like they moved on to other creatures? So, because they didn't find them actually dead, just like really low physical activity. So I mean, I don't think that's super relevant to. Maybe it will be. I don't know. Depends on. We know that that the shuttle falling into Damascus did not kill the creature. Of course, it didn't. So we're probably gonna have some octopuses infected
Wait,
too.
do we know that?
We don't know that,
Oh,
but
okay.
it kind of has to be true at
Yeah,
this point.
kind of left on a cliffhanger a bit
Yeah.
for us. Yeah.
Mm.
wrong words. We don't know that,
Okay.
but it does feel like that has to be true.
Yeah, I was wondering if it would. Oh shit, who's on the spaceship? Senkovi? The spaceship, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering because he was like, "Oh, I can't stop him." Like I was thinking, "Oh, he's gonna crash the spaceship, or he's gonna kill himself to prevent the virus from taking over, or something like that." But I guess it didn't happen. So I wonder what actually happens to him.
Yeah. But do
RAF.
we in the present earlier? Do we see any signs of this alien? Because the octopus are like they're flying a spaceship, right?
Mhm.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Somehow, however they advanced over the thousands and thousands
The
of years.
octopi and the spiders are both flying the spaceships. Yes, that was part of
Yeah.
my sort of difficulty with the early part of the book.
But we don't really see a sign of the from aliens from that planet yet, as far as we know. But there was a reason for Paul's reaction to be scared all of a sudden, which that kind of ended on a cliffhanger of its own, really.
Yeah.
But I wonder, because the end of that section had what the heck was it? A name. What was the name? That Kern got.
Lante.
It's
Yeah.
Irma
The doctor.
Lante.
Yeah.
So
That was the
that's
doctor.
one of the characters.
Yeah.
So that's the clue, which we didn't know yet because we didn't read the past yet. But we now know is at the time though when we read the present, we didn't know what was going on there, what was happening. So we thought it might have been a human civilization, and of course now we know that something else is going on.
Yeah.
And I think the Khan thinks that the octopus is freaked out because she responded to that transmission, right? So yeah, maybe Chris, you're probably right that it's Lante, but it's actually these creatures, and they know to be terrified of these creatures because they took action. Oh, I love the description of how the octopuses do things in ways that Senkovi just can't understand, but then it works anyway.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
And so that last bit where they staved off that shuttle, that was the octopuses doing. Right? Yeah, that was cool. But I think it wouldn't have been enough. Pretty sure.
Yeah, but because Baltil basically burned up in that rocket spaceship, whatever, the parasites are landlocked at that stage. They have no way to get off that planet, so it's obviously been designated by Paul and the octopi of the cephalopods that's a dangerous planet. Probably from some sort of inference from what Senkovi's doing in his programming with the cephalopods at that stage, because he just wanted them to grow up by themselves, a bit like Kern. I mean, the parallels are still there in terms of they want to protect their own little bio experiment here in some ways, and they're seeing some fruits of it. So it appears that cephalopods are more aware and more understanding than Dizra Senkovi thinks they are, even at this stage of the story. So it's probably no surprise that they kind of sense the danger that's a Nod. Great name.
I wonder how they know, how they recognize these things, because they must have there's some sort of not regular, but they must have had context before to be able to recognize it. So how are they? I don't know. Is Nod sending spacecraft to try to infect the planet, or I don't know.
You mean the present, what we saw in the present,
Yeah,
or in the
because
past?
octopi seem to be able to recognize that. So, and to do that, I would assume you must have, either trained yourself or seen it or experienced it in some way, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder how that happens.
That makes sense. And there are warring octopus groups apparently that want to protect the humans and that want to hurt the humans.
Mm.
Do you think the ones that want to hurt are the infected ones, or just that they've reached that point in their evolution where they just like to fight over their belief systems?
Good question.
Maybe.
Yeah. I
don't
love
know.
the irony of Tchaikovsky realizing that they made the most exciting discovery ever known to humankind by actually finding alien life. You know, something that didn't come up in the first book.
Yeah.
And there's nobody to tell. There's nothing that they can do about it. It's the greatest discovery ever, and it's just gonna be lost. And, I just love that irony, because that's such a that's so different from other alien tales, basically. That where it's all focused on humans encountering the aliens and stuff like that. And this one, all the different species we've discovered so far have been created by humans, and this is an actual alien, and they can't tell anybody because there's nobody left to tell. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I like that. Oh man, why do I keep forgetting things I want to bring up? Never mind. Somebody else go.
I think Danny mentioned, I'm so over the spiders. I really am. Like, let's move on. They're not as, now that we don't see them evolving, and now that process is over, it just seems really goofy to me to have them like piloting spaceships and like doing all this stuff. It's like, it just seems really strange. I mean, maybe it's just because they're not humanoid and it's hard to, I'm struggling to connect with them or something, but it just seems and the octopi too. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. Is anyone else on the same page, or am I just a grump?
I was trying to think.
Don't answer that.
Yeah, I was trying to think what the difference is, though, because like Chris said, I think first of all, parallels you could do between these books and I guess what we read for Embassy Town, right? But something is different, at least for me, in the way it's constructed. As in Embassy Town, it felt organic all the way, building on top of things. While for some reason the spiders, it was all sort of, for me, it all felt like it made sense in the first book. But then the end was a bit, I don't know, like the space things. But yeah, this book, it feels something is off. It doesn't feel as organic like the spiders in the ship for some reason. Either it's too close to human, so it just feels like a veneer of something different, but it's really the same. I don't know if it's bad or it's the way it's described, but to me it gives me a slight different feeling.
To me, it's, if the spiders aren't acting like spiders, they may as well be stick figures. I'm sort of trying to imagine them with Led Zeppelin t-shirts and stuff on now. You know, they've really kind of co-opted the humanity into their culture a little bit, because again, the relationship between the humans, the ants, and the spiders is weird. Like, humans are just like pets in some ways, except Kern has this place within society where she's allowed to go off and do her own thing. And I like that whole relationship. Maybe that is where the interest comes going forward, because that seems odd to read, like that it hasn't been explored or hasn't been explained, or of how that evolved to that point, or how it goes. Like, humanity's kind of like a nothing within the society other than one or two individuals, and so it's like not that interesting. I think we're supposed to just kind of want the likes of Portia, but poor Bianca, she get blasted the all shit.
Oh yeah.
But also she's not dead though, because she's obviously got shitloads of eggs and stuff, so she'll be back. You know, it kind of makes the impact of those deaths lessened. Although we probably should have seen that the horror bit that was coming when they described how Bianca died, where they're basically, everybody was covered in bits of her. kind of spread the walls and stuff. There was some sort of clues of maybe the direction that this was going to go after a while, but yeah, I'm not fussed on that. But again, a bit like the book in general, this is the first real new stuff that's coming to it, and I'm totally on board for this stuff. So I have to basically trust that the other one will have some sort of payoff as well, whether in this book or in the next.
Yeah.
I do like, I mean, it is hard to imagine, I agree, with the spiders and the octopoids in space, but they make for some very interesting spaceships. So the octopus spaceships with the water, and I guess we kind of know what happened to that planet thing that they saw going off, the spaceship covered with water. I think that's brilliant. And how the spider ship is made of like silk-like material, except it's not. It's much stronger than silk that the spiders weave. I think, yeah, I think it just makes for some very imaginative tech there when you think about the I forget the word, but their interaction with the world, how that changes what might be. Like, it's not just a giant cylinder like it could have been if it was just a human filling it up.
Yeah. I was thinking about like spaceships filled with water. Like that sort of thing must have made their, them being able to go into space so much harder, because like the mass of something filled with water is so much bigger than filled with air. Like it must have been so hard, right? The momentum and everything to do something like that. It can't be efficient.
Yes, but they also have space elevators, so they don't have to rely on the
Well, but
escape
even
velocity
building the
thing.
space elevator.
No, they have it already, right? The Senkovi built the thing for them.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess they must have built it inside. But then like the whole like fuel needed to change the trajectory and the momentum it must be more efficient just to have some portable water thing attached to yourself instead of the whole ship.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Maybe like just but they'd have to, it's like living in a spacesuit all the time inside the ship. That's fair.
I guess we don't know what the propulsion method is, but I mean, it can't be. Can it be fire? How does their civilization work? Because like fire, it's not something that I guess they had already the technology available from Senkovi's ship, so they must have had some other equivalent thing too, right? Because I mean, I would feel fire is a very important thing to use it. I guess the spiders did not use it, and they used the ants where you're doing the smelting and stuff like that. Yeah. But at some point you need to.
They said Khan's world didn't have charcoal because it didn't have long cycles of evolution or burying under the earth. But did they have iron? Do we know?
Yeah, I think the ants were doing the metallurgy parts. I think I remember that. But I can't think how you would manipulate and create things underwater without some sort of heat source. There's so many problems, so many difficulties, I guess, in doing that.
That's why this is space fantasy, not not hard science.
I guess.
Yeah. I know. If you look at it too much, you could get into some surreal, silly territory. But
it's a funny science fiction, I guess. Sometimes thinking about trying to justify it, just like how Star Wars tried to justify all the bullshit that makes no sense. I say, no, there's just a reason for all of these things. It was so stupid a reason.
Let's not go there.
The parsecs and the...
I was even just talking about the family lineage of it. Again, that I think the point that you made last week, Dan, about how the universe feels so small.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. I think this distance could be between 10 to 50 light years, not just 30 years. 30 years was its distance from Earth. the spider planet to this planet.
1 to 15 light years. Is that far? I don't think that's very far, like in space terms, is it? Like, what's the closest, like, other solar system to our solar system?
Other
Miluba.
solar system to
Closest
our
star.
Let's go to
Isn't it,
Google.
Yeah,
um,
isn't it like millions of light years or something? like that?
Four, just over 4 light years.
But that's the
Yeah.
closest one.
Yeah, it's the
The-
closest
4.
one. Yeah,
So
yes.
if we think I guess we don't know if it's same density, but I think we're in one of the denser parts because we were in one of the I don't know, the arms or whatever, right? So if there's one solar system every 4 light years, it means that there's 15. It's like only 4 sort of stars distant, which is very, very close. And everything is very close in this sort of these stories,
we
right?
probably haven't even left a fragment of the arm
Yeah.
of the
I think we
Milky
should
Way.
stick
Yeah.
background music and dance Sansar. You know?
Yeah, and being able to find like such, I guess, habitable or not habitable, sort of useful planets in such a small, I think it's impossible based on what we know about our solar system, but maybe theirs is different. I don't know. Well, no, it's Earth, so
Well,
I guess I don't know
yeah.
where they are.
They did terraform them too. So
Yeah. But I mean, but they still, I need to find like a geologically active, they said, I think,
yeah.
place and stuff like that with, certain levels of water and elements. I don't know. Just, again, it's not important, but.
I like the stories where they terraformed Jupiter. Or was it? Did we see a story in which they terraformed Jupiter? No,
Okay.
we just saw them turn into creatures that live on Jupiter.
Really? Wait, how do you terraform Jupiter? It's made of gas, right?
No, they didn't terraform.
Okay.
They just turned into creatures that. So the premise of that story was that every planet has some sort of
Mhm.
like native creature, and humans built tech to convert themselves to that creature.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the Jupiter creature was particularly beautiful.
I think I read
Well,
something
we only got the
similar.
description of that.
Like
Yeah.
That's
like
a tip.
people living in the sun, and they were like very low density or something, like floating inside the sun because it's different, right?
Hmm. Oh, interesting. Tell me which story that is. I want to read
It's
it.
one from Arthur C. Clarke. I don't remember
Okay.
what it was, but I'm pretty sure it's from him. And I think there's something, I don't know if it's still him, but something about, there's like people living inside the Earth, but the density is so different that to us they appear like air or something, like the opposite. Like we can't detect it because it's something like, I don't remember if it was him or someone else. But
Okay.
I see.
This is reminding me of a Peter Hamilton book, like what we're reading here, but I won't say which one because I want us to read it and be properly surprised by the reveals there.
Nice.
What did you guys think of Senkovi's meltdown after the octopus says why? Why have you created me? Did we already talk about that last time? But I think it was expanded upon some more in this section.
Yeah, we brought up that last time, about you're a god, you make these creatures, and then the creatures ask why did you make me, why did you which is similar to what humans do, why do we exist, and so, but of course Senkovich has a bit more of an answer. He is a scientist. He is trying to evolve these creatures for a reason, possibly for of course to help rebuild whatever slim hope they ever have of encountering humans again. They did want to build a city like structure or something, or just some abode of some sort beyond their shuttles and ships, what have you. So, and the octopus had with the right, what do they give them, cocktails, or how does he make them evolve? I don't remember how that worked, but whatever it was, whatever the science was behind him evolving the octopus, he wanted them in order to, help them out, and build a society of whatever they could. As far-fetched as that would have been with just 5 people, but so it was, it was cool. I kind of like the evolution of the octopus. I think it was a little different than the spiders, in the sense that the spiders' evolution was planet-wide and it was society-wide, whereas this was very more self-contained into a small project, and it was more we didn't get to see everything that the octopus were going through like we did with the spiders, and we were left guessing a lot about what their motives are and what their progress was, until much later, until some of the
I
future
think it was
books,
more guided, right?
It was more guided, yeah. But it was also, but I liked how it was presented that he couldn't figure it out, and he was kind of just giving them this guidance, but he didn't know if they were taking it. He didn't know if they were, how they were figuring stuff out, and so kind of a lost god, really. But so I liked it. I liked it. It's fun. It's not anything that's gonna, make me keep me up at night wondering how he did it. But it was it's a fun story. I like it.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was funny when he thought about like, oh, I did all this shit with the octopus, and now I need to report back. And it's like, oh, they're all dead. Thank God I don't need to report back. Well,
I like how he tries to communicate with them, but they're like, yeah, like they ignore him for the most part, and then sometimes send him what seems like poetry, which we can believe because we saw Paul do his brilliant performance for the human and the spider. Oh, and it was really cool / interesting that the Paul of the present day was like, oh, this is a moment for history. They will remember this, so I have to speak and create poetry. That was really cool.
Yeah, and I love when he runs away and he puts out the inky blackness. That was great.
Yeah, that was cool. There was one other, there were 2 other things I liked about the distributed consciousness aliens. One, when we got that section where they had infected Lorties and they were going on about how splendid it was. If you take that out of context, it could be about people exploring space, which was pretty cool. I liked that duality and how that was written. And then they keep referring to the humans as vessels, like they are spaceships. They like the vessels archives. What is it? The vessels' own archives helpfully supplied names for the newcomers. Like it's some book that they're reading, like you said, Dan, or some old computer that they found.
Well, it's like
and
a
they're
mech.
trying
They're
to
piloting a mech.
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I like these aliens. I don't like, and this was interesting. Like we talked at the end of the first book about how somewhat terrifying it was that the humans have been changed forever with the nanovirus. This is that on steroids, right? This is so much worse. And like there's nothing of the human left anymore. So yeah, it is interesting. But also, what is different from, I guess, the first thing, modified the humans, but not in a way that what makes them human is no longer there, perhaps, or just removed a small segment of it, whereas this one just completely replaces the brain.
Like,
yeah.
What makes a human human, right?
Yeah. And I think this story, the underlying aspect of it is that like consciousness in the humans comes completely from the brain, it seems like, which of course it does, but It's not. There's no like external source or whatever. It's not like there's no replace the corpus callosum and then I could just read the brain like a book. So
Or for now.
for now, do you think there's any of Paul or the others? Not Paul. The I forget the names. Lante and Lortis. Were they still there in their fighting, or
Who knows?
it's unclear, right?
I mean, is a person their memories? Is the consciousness something else, right? Because that's what it means. Like, I guess don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But they are a separate entity, it seems like, at the moment. From, like, they won't become the person if they acquire all the
But
knowledge
maybe
and memory.
the person becomes like 1% of the whole personality of it all, right?
Yeah, because there is a wider consciousness.
Yeah. But if I think about it, like, that must be so boring. Like, think about it. Like, if I take 100 people and then our personality is the average of all these 100 people, I'm sure that person would be very boring.
or it's all the peaks of all those personalities. Then they'd have a very
Then it's a schizophrenic.
hyper.
Yeah. I just
find
thought,
interesting stuff.
I was thinking something about the octopi, right? Because maybe because they have like their brains are like their tentacles have like sort of separate brains, they can think about themselves. Maybe that makes them resistant to the like not the virus, the parasite. Because maybe they learn like, oh, it infects them and infects one part, and they can recognize that that part is infected because it's got multiple personalities. So they're like, I don't know, they can cut their tentacles off and regrow them, because I know some of them can regrow.
Yeah,
right?
they can regenerate. Yeah.
So I wonder if something like that is going to happen.
Oh, and these parasites, they can't strictly regenerate, but they can survive outside the host. Like, they can keep parts of the body alive. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting
Maybe have
interaction.
tentacles just on their own. After, he cuts his tentacle to survive, and then the tentacle goes inside the vents or something. I can see that happening.
So the other ship, it doesn't have octopuses, it just has tentacles.
Yeah.
Oh, the horror.
Parts
The
that
horror.
wanted to attack.
Oh, wow.
That took a turn.
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't want this to become a smart book or something.
No. What?
Japanese porn. You know what I'm referencing.
No.
There's a lot of tentacles.
I don't think I want to
Anyways.
know the oak.
There's lots of time. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It's culture. It's old art from the Edo period.
Mm-hmm. Take your word for it.
No, you can Google.
Don't Google
Google
it.
that. Google the fish parasite tongue.
Oh, wow.
You know, some homework for next time.
Well, then I assign the homework.
Okay, fair enough. Is my homework not to mention these things ever again?
You can mention them, I just won't go look them up.
Fair enough.
I might, but in an incognito tab, so my feed is not filled with recommendations.
Yeah.
Any other interesting closing thoughts about this?
I'm encouraged after the last little bit. It felt like the same story again. But yeah, I'm encouraged.
Nice.
Looking forward to reading on,
I'm glad
for sure.
we got Steve back around.
All it took was a little bit of horror, a little bit of murder, a bit of blood, a bit of...
Is that too much to ask? I mean...
Not at all. And with that, I guess we'll go on to talking about Baby HP Salesman, which, Dan, you can stick around because like a half-page long story. You can read it in the next 2 minutes. No, I'm kidding. You don't
I
have
need to cook some risotto for the next days, so...
Oh, nice.
Not for you,
You
unfortunately.
and Jared have to have a cook-off.
I'm
Yeah.
sure he'll win.
I don't know.
Oh, that's what somebody's quietly confident would say.
But yeah, I don't know about it. I can feed myself and maybe my wife, but that's about it.
Got to share pictures with us,
Yeah,
Dan. Let us know what it
sure.
looks like.
Okay. But
I
yeah,
think there's a thread on the forum to share the food you make.
Yes, there
I
is.
remember.
Fred, okay.
Riz,
I'll post my misshapen pizzas.
Nice.
Nice.
Hold you to that. Good.
Okay.
When I do that with chapatis, I just call them. I just say I'm making maps.
Oh yeah. I just say they're artisanal.
Mm.
Yeah, but thanks for our discussion. Let's hope the next part of the book is good too.
Let's hope.
Okay, bye. Talk to
See
you
you
next
next
time.
week.
Yeah.
Dan. And so let's talk about the baby HP sales. Wait, no, just that's not the name of the story. Jared's baby HP salesman for this week. Baby
With-
HP. That's the
For
story.
you with kids, have I got a device for you? Oh man.
And you will not get struck down by lightning as long as you follow the instruction.
Yeah, follow the instructions. Yeah.
Do what you're told.
Do what you're told. And you won't get electrocuted either. Like as long as you follow instructions.
So
What do you
the
guys
general
think?
principle is just stick a device on your baby and use its bad temper, its tantrums, and all that to power your home and power your life.
Yeah. Better than solar
For a
panel.
few seconds at a time.
Did it seem too far-fetched now that you would see something like this?
No.
It might have been far-fetched back then, but would you be shocked if you saw this now? Really? Like, would you be surprised?
This is on the TikTok shop, almost certainly.
Not at all. I think it's brilliant. Wish I would have had one when they were younger.
That's what makes you the good salesman for this
Yeah.
product.
Yeah, I think it's a terrible story, but the idea I think is brilliant.
I could just see Jared walking,
It
knocking on
sounds
the
like
door.
like an ad.
Yeah, knock on the door and go, let me tell you, I've got 36 kids, and if I had this baby HP...
Yeah, I would have saved a lot of money.
But actually, to your point, Steve, I sort of read it by the end of almost like another horror story, because it is sort of having a bit of a dig at corporate America in some ways. You know, trust us, we'll look after your kids and give you advantages of having kids. You'll like the film full of carbs and sugar, all of this kind of stuff. And so it's kind of scary in a lot of ways, because it sort of does hit home a little bit with you know, things that have been introduced in the culture that are inherently bad for you. You can even go back to cigarettes and stuff if you want. Things that were health risks, but are sort of marketed with a different slant, a different message, so much so that it becomes cool or a necessity for certain parts of the population and all that kind of stuff. So you can actually see how this all works out, and putting it in babies and using our babies, which are pretty much the last bastion of thing that people will not do this to in a lot of ways, is not Jared, obviously, you know.
I'm first in line.
First in line. Is a bit scary for sure.
You know, and I don't want to be too predictable, but there's been a lot of talk recently in reality about social media being kind of hazardous, and they were talking about putting a warning label on social media, and about how kids that are growing up now who were young and their parents put them on social media and kind of had like parenting channels and would showcase their kids. It kind of reminded me of how kids are used as props now in content. And they're used as kind of not really people. They're just for monetization, to get views and clicks, and to profit off of kids. So it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, sure.
It's a bit like when child actors, they don't normally necessarily get a say in whether they get to have all this fame attached to them, right? And this is that, except scaled out so much more, because everybody can put their kid on social media, and kids tend to blow up, like in terms of like getting viral and whatnot. So
So Jared's looking to sell them a product to use your kids, and you're looking to blow them up. This is a dark,
They won't blow up
dark
if you
market.
follow the instructions.
Instructions, yeah, okay.
Do I have a device for you?
And why, if they do blow up, you're going to be able to heat your house and have enough electricity in your house for a month.
Yeah.
and you can feed them sugar because you get back more electricity with that. Was sugar a lot cheaper than electricity when this was written? What's the deal with that? Like, you get a big return on investment.
Well, especially during that precious hour of recess. I mean, jeez, all the energy.
Yeah. But it is sort of funny that, okay, let's play this out and go through. If this was a product, that side of parenting might change. You know what I mean? But again, that value perception. There's a life coach I used to speak to. Used to go in and do some work with people, and he used to ask people to pick something that they hated doing. You know, go through your life. Tell me the one thing that you wish you didn't have to do. And it says the amount of people that would say things like, I hate washing dishes, for instance, right? And he'd say, well, that's interesting because you're bathing your hands in warm, soapy water, which in any other experience would be a pleasurable experience. And it's about reframing the experience for yourself. So, and actually using that in some ways. So in this case, the BBHP product would reframe the experience of the kid crying, yapping, running around mad around your finger, because, you know, you'd be able to get the tumble dryer on, you know, and not have it cost a fortune or something to that effect, kind of have it wired in. And so people would sort of be encouraging their kids to be running about or screaming, or get all the kids in the whole neighborhood round to my house. It's my turn today to have the 30 kids so that I'll have enough electricity for a week. You can sort of see it.
That's an interesting point, Chris, about the whole reframing, how you view something and how you react to something. Because he did say that in the story there, like, you know, your kid's having a tantrum. It's not going to be a big deal anymore. You know, it's going to be beneficial, and you're not going to have that immediate reaction of, this kid's driving me nuts or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting point you bring up there.
But would that then mean that you encourage your kid to do things that are harmful for them, right?
There's always going to be a downside. Yeah. Always.
But just for the kids, and as long as it's for the kids, Jared's on board.
If you follow the instructions.
If you follow the
instructions.
And he gets a 10% kickback for every recommendation you send on to somebody else.
With computers, it's did you turn it on and off again? With this, it is did you follow the instructions to the letter? Sorry, your baby got electrocuted.
Yeah.
But how is this different from setting up a bicycle and making electricity on your own with a bicycle, right?
Right.
And using that electricity. Except in this case, you're using it with kids. And you're using it in a manner that's not going to take you the effort that you put into getting on that bicycle and making that electricity, because the kids are going to run around regardless. So I'm just trying to justify my sale here, but but you could look at it that way, like, you know, if because you could set something up to create electricity in that manner. Of course, it wouldn't be very much, you know, all told, but you know, this is just a cheeky comment on that kind of activity, basically, this story.
Yep.
But like a lot of things, it works because it's sort of close to true. And especially the more, as Steve said right at the start of this, through a completely modern lens, it's becoming more and more true as time goes by.
Yeah. No, we've all heard the horror stories of bad parents who use their children through and through to make money for whatever reason, either through acting or even other stuff, and this definitely seems like a commentary on that part of it. The major downside of using children in such a manner.
And I'm a big fan of one-page short stories. These are great.
Yep. Especially when you think about the fact that we have to read a 40-page long short story for next week.
By our favorite writer.
By our favorite writer, yes. We'll see. Maybe he'll redeem himself with this. Steve's not going into the story with a lot of hope. You haven't read Cities in Flight, right, Steve?
I haven't.
Well, if it doesn't have Amalfi, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Imagine if Amalfi makes a guest appearance, though. Can you? Oh, it's just going to be...
No. I am writing an angry note to the editor.
Look, we know he'll not make a guest appearance because if Amalfi's in a story, it's all about him.
That's true. That's true.
He's a very
No
in-jokes.
guest appearances from
Very
Amalfi.
in-jokes.
From, interestingly, the most popular SF Masterworks discussion we've had so far.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I think we're ready to close out today's episode. We'll see. Any closing thoughts? Sorry, I forgot to ask.
No, it was. I enjoyed the. I think it was like a sales, like a flyer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Less like a story, more like a flyer. It was fun though. It's fun.
Yeah. I always like when stories do interesting things structurally. Like there was this one Ken Liu story in the Paper Menagerie that read like, some entries from a notebook or something that would serve into writing a research paper. And I think we came across one more that was an ad or something. And we actually got a bonus short story for this author. I forgot to bring it up. In the author's note with the one where he apparently skewered Cervantes by summarizing Don Quixote in, I guess, I haven't read the book, so I don't know if this makes sense or how much of a parody this is, but he summarized Don Quixote and made it sound horrible in a short story that's 4 paragraphs long. All right. So we'll see everybody in a week with the third discussion of Children of Ruin and, no short story next week.
Yeah.
But there will be one week after. Thank you so much for listening.